Hello everyone, welcome along to the Chargers TV podcast for another week of discussion of Chargers basketball as we come to you from Studio J once again. Roll Riggs, Justin Bryan alongside you here, and JB, a massive welcome to you, and big podcast coming up.
Big podcast coming up indeed, Ronnie, as we certainly have a lot to reflect on in the last round in round 6, and a lot coming up, particularly round 7 and round 8. Of course, our focus will be on round 7, but genuine crossroads here and genuine step up or step out sort of opportunity over the next couple of weeks for both men's and women's sides.
Absolutely. Let's dwell straight into it. And round 6 of the Mitsubishi Motors NBL1 South competition concluded over the weekend as your Mackay Timber Hobart Chargers took on the Melbourne Tigers, and we'll delve into the women's results now. And of course, well, geez, it was a night to forget for if you were a Chargers fan within the women's competition, JB, because unfortunately, and Dwayne Davey today in his press conference taking immediate responsibility for the loss and for the poor performances happening right now. The women's side went down, JB.
They did go down, and they went down off the back of essentially, Ronnie, as we've described it over the last couple of weeks, a preservation style of basketball after gaining a lead, going down 72-68. Of course, a massive lead there in the first quarter, out by 10 points. They did lead that one by as much as 15 and managed to somehow be run over the top of, outscored in the second term, led in the third term, but Melbourne proving way too strong there as they closed that one out. For your Mackay Timber Hobart Chargers, Kayla Steindl with a vintage Kayla Steindl performance, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists for her. Double-digit scoring there for Jada Jansen with 11 points, 10 points to Zoe Banks, 10 rebounds to Zoe Richards, as Sierra Walker chipped in with 9 points, 8 rebounds as well. Again, Chloe Broomhall, model of consistency off the bench there, pinch hitting really well, 4 points, 9 rebounds as well. But the other side of things, it was a telling story. Sierra Dillard, 46, 8 and 5.
And she was the Foot Locker Player of the Week.
Understandable. Averaged 38 across the week. A mammoth performance up in Launceston the following night. But, I mean, joked around on commentary, sort of tongue-in-cheek, sort of pretty semi-serious. You could see Sierra was really at a vengeance. Got to 25 points. Okay, it's definitely going for 30. Hit 30, and it's like, okay, no one's slowing her down. She's a chance at 40, and the way she started playing, it looked like she was going to be able to crack 50 there at one point. So a massive 46-point effort for her. Samantha Simons hit some really big shots. She played every single minute of that game. She played all 40 minutes. Massive credit to her. 10.7 boards, 3 steals there. She was the only double-digit scorer for the team. Abby Sutherland, no points but 8 boards. Big contribution there. Same with Amy O'Neill, no points, 5 rebounds. And Leela Davis drawing the fouls, Ronnie, but played a really physical game despite not scoring a point. It was really just one of those games where Hobart got the lead. They get up 15, 16, 17 points, and rather than trying to add to the lead, they tried to conserve the lead, played a really preservation style of basketball as far as the game they were in, and Melbourne took full advantage. They were the aggressors. They were the ones that wanted to play attacking team basketball. They're the ones that wanted to attack to get a win rather than defend to get a win. And we've seen it time and time again in the NBL1 competition, Ronnie, where if you are aggressive and you want to win the game, then it's usually the opposition's to lose when you go into a preservation mode. And unfortunately, that's exactly where Hobart was at. Dillard, we spoke to her post-game, massive performance there. She was all about team, really took ownership in how she performed with the spotlight on, but again, really gave ownership there to the team and full credit to them with what they did. They went up the following night, going up against Launceston. Really big game from her. She's put Melbourne right back in to a competitive standpoint as far as where they're sitting. For Hobart now, though, they've realistically lost maybe 3 or 4 of their last 5 games that were very winnable games, very gettable games there. You mentioned about Dwayne Davey taking the responsibility there. There's going to be some players there that are going to have more questions asked, no doubt, behind closed doors. It's a really interesting situation our women's side is in because we're talking about, Kayla as a leader. Kayla's there night in, night out, both ends of the floor. Zoe Richards, she's still adapting to the physicality there, but can be and proven to be a quality sparring partner when given a chance. We've seen what Jansen and Walker can do from the perimeter. We've seen what Banks can do when she gets possession of the basketball. Really crucial minutes through young players as well. We've seen Claire Murray contribute. We've seen Chloe Broomhall continue to be Chloe Broomhall. Andy Smith getting glimpses here or there, consistently showing the unicorn level of talent that she can be. But this team is just struggling to put the jigsaw together, or they're putting it together and it's crumbling off the end of the table as the game wears down. It's going to be a massive road trip, a massive couple of weeks coming up here for Hobart. When they return home, they're going to be taking on the North. They're going to be taking on the Tawns in a return derby. There's going to be a lot of questions asked internally, you would think, of the women's team right now. Well,
they've got 2 weekends, 4 games to sort out their stuff before we see them all back again at the end of the month, JB. And, with the Tornadoes, they're thriving. They're on a high. They got the win over Melbourne on Saturday night, so they're obviously happy. Now, they were at full strength. They had the full team now. And in the news today, both good on Win News for running 2 separate stories here, one on the Chargers and then one on the Tawns, and the fun they're getting a small glimpse of airtime. But Keely Froling unavailable for the next few weeks due to Opal's commitments and trying to get her ticket punched to Paris. As well too. So we may not see a full-strength Launceston side when we do see them at the end of the month. But in saying all that, Hobart have to make sure that they, make some key changes, get all on the same page. Then the next 2 road trips are vital for them to all get along. And I'm sure they do get along. I just think it's something to do within the team or how it's structured. And Dwayne kind of pointed a few things out in his press conference today about trying to change a few things here and there. Hopefully that will work, and hopefully we'll see a much more successful team going forward.
Well, at the end of the day, it's going to be a long 3-week stretch.
Yes.
You're playing 5 games over 3 weeks, 2 back-to-back double headers on the road. You then play an arch nemesis at home.
Yep.
Can you really rally the troops to try and get back to 500 and somehow in the last third of this season really be competitive and really push? The other thing we've got to remember, this is the 3rd year of a 3-year plan.
Yes.
Where culturally you've wanted a shift in the team,
yep,
and then competitively you want a shift in the team. Okay, so the culture has clearly changed. There's clearly some more strong leadership around it. There's clearly a youth policy in place. There now needs to be results, because as much as it pains me to say it, it's true through all sports. Winning fixes everything.
Yep.
There have been plenty of times where we've been around teams and clubs and everything where
yes,
your culture can be in the gutter, but if you're winning, no one cares, no one notices, because
correct,
in the public eye, you're winning, you're successful, everything's got to be going okay.
Yep.
But when you're not winning, that's when the spotlight gets shone a little, the lights get a little bit brighter.
Yes.
You need to put the sunglasses on and you're going to have to take in the rays. So right now, there's a fair bit of work that probably needs to be done. Good opportunity to learn. As you said, get on the road, get together as a group, really relish the idea that, hey, we're all in this together. Don't go, I'm doing this on the road. No, you're doing this as a team. We're doing this as a group. We've got to build. They can certainly still turn it around, but you don't want to get too stuck in the creek without a paddle for too long. Otherwise, again, once you start looking at being 5-6 games below 500 in any league, you're in a lot of trouble, because you've realistically got to go undefeated through 6 games just to break even. And that's a lot of pressure on a team to do. So we'll see what Hobart can do. Couldn't get the win against Melbourne, but they do have a chance to turn it round. Meanwhile, in the men's game,
yes,
it was a go-to-woe situation, a competitive first 2.5, 3 quarters. Yep. But eventually, Ronnie, the men came over the top.
They did.
In what was no doubt a highly emotional game for Andrew Gaze and the Melbourne side, particularly when we mention, before the game we find out that Homicide Williams had passed away.
Yes.
A lot riding on the game, a lot of emotion riding on the game. Hobart at home, a chance to, really break out and get that, winning 2/3 of your games, you're going to be really competitive there. And, full credit to Hobart in the end. They get the job done, and they've put themselves in a really solid position for what's going to be, again, like the women, a defining 3 weeks.
Absolutely. And I'd love to respond to Stewie's criticism of us as well too. So here we go. Hobart getting the win, of course, as JB mentioned. Terrell Brown is on dynamite form at the moment. 22 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists. Stewie talking him up today in the press conference as well too. Again, as a kudos to Win TV for running 2 solid basketball reports on their news coverage. Fantastic to see. Viontae Daniels, 22 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Again, Mr. Consistent right there, and we talked to him after the game as well too, which you can see on our socials and YouTube. Now, Ollie Angerstein chipped in very handy, 16 points, 9 rebounds, and then Jacob Richards had 10 and 5 and 2. And then just quickly, former Chargers player Jack Purchase had a good night out. 18 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Tom Wilson, who we mentioned on commentary, come off from an AFL stint with the Collingwood Football Club. 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists as well. And then, of course, Michael Wern off the bench did a great job. 16 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists as well. Just before I delve into everything there, JB, first and foremost, our sincere condolences to the Williams family, and a massive loss for Corey Homicide Williams. As we mentioned on broadcast, a larger-than-life character, could light up a room. Was lucky enough to meet him on a couple occasions, and really great to interact with and whatnot. And very sad loss for the global basketball community.
Yeah, massive. One of the, you hear the stories about New York basketball and what is New York basketball and who is New York basketball. Corey epitomised what New York basketball was. Someone who worked hard, didn't want anything for nothing, but when he got there, he relished it and he made the most of it, and he made everyone known that he'd worked for it and he will relish it and he will make the most of it. I mean, Larry Kesselman summarised it really well, and a lot of people have summarised it really well. The promotion of the game came through Corey's character and his personality. Hell of a competitor, was a pretty solid unit. I mean, photos we've seen floating around, Ronnie, 6'2", 6'3". I don't think it was really that giant listed player that was there. I mean, we've met him in person, 6'2", 6'3", solid build, real smart as far as a marketing standpoint, real smart from a basketball standpoint, as a former league MVP. I don't care what stage you win that MVP and what the league's at. You were a league MVP.
Correct.
You don't get that by just rocking out on the court. So, a massive loss for basketball in Australia, massive loss from the American-Australian connection standpoint there. One of the real culture builders and one of the big builders of what the game currently is from a national standpoint right now. So, it was one of those ones when we heard it, we were like, that's massive. Yeah. We had the minute silence before the men's game, and then, of course, you factor in, how close Melbourne coach Andrew Gaze is with Homicide. We were going to try and get an interview, but, better judgment was, hey, look, this is not the night. Drury doesn't need to be having, hey, mate, can we get an interview? No. The fact that Drury was even on the road is highly commendable.
Absolutely.
If Andrew Gaze had said, no, I'm going back to Melbourne, I'm not doing this, hey, my assistant can coach for the weekend, I don't think anyone would have begrudged him. Correct. But it speaks to the character of who Gazy is as a person. So
absolutely.
A massive shout out to Gazy and a massive shout out to Melbourne to still come down, still be competitive, and still put on 2 quality games of basketball across both down here in Hobart, but certainly on the northwest. So a really emotional weekend.
It certainly was. Kudos to the Hobart Chargers board and the people behind the scenes there making a decision that we would take a minute's silence as well too. We all that as well. To the game, first half was quite back and forth a little bit, and then the floodgates did open, and then we saw what Terrell Brown can do, and certainly he's showing that he's definitely, if he keeps this form up, he's certainly in that MVP talk, and Stewie's talking about today about his speed and his pace, and if he can control that quite well and utilise it to his advantage nicely, there's no doubt that he could be on NBL radar. That's for sure. I felt Beyonce again chipped in very solid. Ollie was Ollie. I would have loved to see Ollie go double there, just one rebound short. Yeah,
he had a nice little battle there at one point with Cal Barker. Early on in that game. That was a really good battle for both of those when they were on the floor.
Yeah, no, he certainly did. And I thought Joe Chilcott coming off the bench has been a better move. I think when we kind of publicly opened the question about Terrell a couple of weeks ago, which Stewie has been on to us like no tomorrow. But again, as I'm sticking to my gun saying it's a fair question, Stewie, I think that move has paid off dividends because I think we're seeing a different Joe Chilcott out there, and certainly one that is contributing well and playing his role to a T. And I think everyone's doing well. I think the youngsters at some stage we'll see a bit more court time as well too. It's nice to see the youngsters get out on the floor late in that game, and again, that's what the crowds want to kind of see, a little bit more of that local talent getting a bit of more of a chance. So hopefully, it'll be a little bit different when they go on the road over the next couple of weekends. And again, rotation is critical. and Stewie will certainly know how to play his cards right with that one. I just coming back towards, it's lovely when Stewie approaches us, JB, and says hi and says how you going, and then starts to.
I don't think I've ever heard Stewie say hi, how you going. That's usually not his introduction to us, Ronnie.
No, I was trying to be nice on the broadcast here, but look, I just with putting this team together. I was critical early in the year that apparently he was too heavily guarded, rotated. I feel like now I need to take those words back and say, well, geez, you're third on the ladder. You're 1 or 2 wins off being on top. They're playing such great basketball at the moment.
Bounced back from losses where they should have had and answered really well from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, to Stewie's credit, once again, he knows how to prove people wrong and prove me wrong in this situation. So, Stewie, I'm glad you listened to our podcast.
That's probably our biggest compliment, actually. That
it is.
Of all the things going on in Anthony Stewart's life is that he takes time out to listen to us, which is just remarkable. Really.
It is remarkable. And to think those comments do get back to Stewie, or Stewie hears those comments, and he has every right to have a crack at us as well too. That's no issues on my end, JB. I mean, we just kind of chew the fat here, say
just average Joes talking like average Joes.
Say what we think, and if we're wrong, we're wrong, and if we're right, we're right. So no, I give credit to Stewie. He's done a great job with this group right now. The big thing will be to keep the consistency. I'm aware Clint Steindl is not around.
He'll be on a sabbatical.
He will. The question will be when Clint is gone for a period of time.
When he returns.
How does this team go, and then where does that leadership find itself to whoever takes it? So I suppose those are the questions now going forward. So, Stewie, you've done wonders and you've done right, and I should be eating humble pie or something or whatever.
But he can't. I got hungry and I ate it myself.
Yeah, there you go. So now my next questions are for this group, Stewie, is. And Phil, if you ever want to come and be a guest on our podcast,
I'm not telling you where I live, Stewie. By the way,
I'd love to have you on.
We'll go down to the ranch.
we'll go somewhere. Yes. What are the keys going forward now with this group? You got Terrell in good form. Vionto's been consistent. Jacob has been consistent night in, night out. So he has how long's a piece of string? So they can keep this form up. I now relish the fact that this team is near. It's not identical to the 21 season team, but I tell you what, there's talk. We could nearly put that talk within that conversation of that 21 team.
Yeah, I think the only difference there is honestly the length of the team, the scoring ability's there, the structure's there, the transition's there. For Stewie, again, thank you for tuning in. Something about defamation of character, but I couldn't find that character of which we defamated. It was really weird. It was tough search.
Yeah.
But no, they're playing really good basketball, and I think the key now, as we mentioned, along with the fact that Clint's out, there's gonna have to be someone to step up in the Zach White role.
Yes.
And we talk about offensively. That's great. You've still got to be able to get a stop. And it's something that we look at all the time in sports. It's okay to be able to put 100 points on the board. If you can't stop 105, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So there's got to be that person to step up in that Zach White role as well. And that's a massive loss. So that's probably the other thing they've got to combat there is not only you've got that culture, that leadership, and essentially that pinch-hitting double-double that Clint Steindl's brought now, but you're also looking at someone like a Zach who can give you 12.7 rebounds, stretching the floor, playing solid D. So you've got to really look at how that sits as well. Again, I think these back-to-back road trips are going to be the real character test.
Yeah.
This is the sort of thing that Stewie relishes from, where does my team truly sit? We're going to play back-to-back trips interstate, back-to-back nights of basketball. We come back and play the Thunder. They're going to want to have revenge to be going back up against the Thunder as well. From a Stewie standpoint there, we're talking about 5 games. Stewie will realistically look at this and go, our minimum pass mark here is 3-2.
Yeah.
Minimum pass mark. He will be wanting 4-1 and above through these next 5 games.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden, the floodgates open a little bit more. So a real watch this space. I think our men's team's going to be... it's going to be interesting to watch. This will be these next 2 weeks, these next 2 road trips. These next 4 games will be the true determinant, I think, for how this team is going to be looking, certainly in the back end of the season.
Yes, so both teams here have got Keilor and Knox.
Correct.
So I think from memory, looking at the ladder today, in the women's competition, obviously both teams are above Hobart, and then in the men's, they're just slightly below, but we're focusing on the women right now in this small segment before we get to the other segment with the men. Going to be really, really interesting battle. I mean, I think we kind of half talked about it earlier in this podcast, JB, that the road trip is now vital for this women's team to try and get their season back on track.
Yeah, this road trip's massive. The next 2 road trips are massive. I mean, we're focusing on this week, but you would have to think that they need to square away 2 from the next 4 minimum. Again, talked about getting it over the Thunder as well. Just looking at the women's ladder here, Chargers are sitting 3 and 6 now, and then all of a sudden you're going to be taking on Keilor, who are sitting top of the table 9 and 1. And Knox, who are 8 and 1. So they're Knox, Mount Gambier, and Keilor pretty much just separated by games played.
Yep.
You could be up a creek without a paddle here. Yeah. This could be this is where, there's no such, there's honourable losses, and these could be weekends of honourable losses. There needs to be a level of competitiveness here. That the unbridled question is that there needs to be a level of competitiveness. No ifs, ands, or buts. If there is a lack of competitive nature in any of these games right now, then, it's horrible to say, but all bets are off.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really, really massive. I'm just going to have a quick look at both of the Keilor teams and the Knox teams there. But as I mentioned, 8 and 1, 9 and 1. You're looking from a Hobart standpoint. They've lost 4 of their They've lost 4 games in their last 5 that they should have won. You turn the fixture around on that all of a sudden, and you're like, hey, we should have really only lost 2 games.
Yeah.
We're a good enough team that we really should be fighting in that top 8. We should be fighting in that top 4. It's currently not where it is at the moment, which is unfortunate, but that's realistically where it does sit at the moment. Of course, in our men's, and we'll get to the teams here in a second, in our men's there, Chargers are 6 and 3. And when you look at it there, Ronnie, they lose a game against Ballarat they shouldn't have lost. Ballarat are 7 and 2.
Yeah.
So you credit that win to them and you go the other way. Hobart sitting in the top 2 there. And they would be second on percentage to Mount Gambier, having a really nice season. They've got to be careful, though, because Keilor are hot on their heels.
Yes.
They are technically tied for 4th position with Waverley there with a 6 and 4 record. Knox are 5 and 4, so they've really played 1 game difference. So these are also games that the men can't sleep on. We can't have a situation there where the men go, we're ahead, we're going to take the win. They've still got to be really competitive from that standpoint there. So in the women's comp, as I mentioned, taking on the Keilor Thunder, in previous years we've spoken about Annalee Maley walking in with 15 points, 30 boards. You're not necessarily going to have to deal with that so much this year.
No, she's in the Western Conference now too.
Correct.
So everyone's breathing a sigh of relief there.
Absolutely, but you're still looking at someone like a Maddie Rocky who's been there for quite some time. So the other thing they've now got to also focus on the women, we can't have an individual star tear us apart.
Correct.
Because that's what's happened in the last 2 games.
2 weeks.
2 40 pieces.
Yeah. Steph Reid and Dillard. Dillard, yes.
So it's certainly something they're going to have to be careful of. They can't allow it to happen. Rochi, as I mentioned, having a really big season, 16.3 points. Izzy Bourne, really nice as well at 16.8. You've also got Tara Reid. She's been around for a while, 12.8. Penina Davidson, she's having a nice run at 15.3 points as well. And they're all pretty well-rounded players as well. They're all part of their assists, steals and blocks. So there's a lot of players to deal with. You're not necessarily going to get beaten by one. You are still a chance, though, and I think that's the one thing, particularly from a Keilor or a Knox standpoint, they're going to look and go, hey, we've got a ball-dominant guard that gets up and down the floor. Great, let's give him possession of the basketball. Of course, when we're looking on the other side of things from Knox, Alicia Froling happens to be sitting there. Leah Santamaggio happens to be there as well. And former Charger, Paige Bradley, happens to be there as well. And I would not want to be the player that has to go and guard any of them. Alicia Froling broke her right hand and decided to go in with an MVP with her left hand. Leah Santamaggio's been around for a while. And we've seen the dynamic ability there of Paige Bradley as well. So it's going to be a real uphill battle there in our women's team. There's no doubt about it. Of course, as I mentioned in the men, they cannot be complacent.
Correct.
It's one of those ones where, we've got a real opportunity here. We're ahead. We should probably be top 2. We could be, realistically, by the end of the weekend, the number 1 team in the South. A lot at stake for both sides. As I said, Ronnie, in the women, it's going to be a matter of do not let one player dominate you, but understand you've got a lot of pieces on the board to deal with. In the men's, they just can't be complacent. That's how I see it. How do you see it?
Well, as I said in the women, it's a matter of let's get on the same page. Let's make sure these changes are effective and will work, and let's just make sure and work together as a team. And let's see if we can pull off some upsets. Try and cause some damage. You might as well take a free swing, play with nothing to lose, go for it, and just see what you can do. Realistically, I feel like it could be a potential 1-1 weekend. If they can go 2-0 and upset everyone, that would be a good talking point around the league. If they go 0-2, then I feel there's some more questions need to be asked of this group. When we look at the men's side of things, the men are really confident going into this because they really want to go 2-0. 2 tough games, I feel, between Keilor and Knox. Knox have always been historically a tough team to take on in Seaboard NBL1. Keilor have certainly shown, we saw that last year. I think it was the game of the week in Keilor where we went back and forth with them in what was a ripper of a game. So, for the men, it's just, again, having that consistency, having your main players like Deontay Daniels, Jacob Richards, Ollie Angerstein, Terrell Brown, all playing with that kind of want and need and scoring in double digits as well too. I feel the men can go 2-0 this weekend. Wouldn't surprise me if we go 1-1, but I'd love to see them go 2-0 and come back here with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. So it will be interesting to see, and it will be and of course you can always tune in by the NBL1 website or the NBL1 app. Make sure you have an NBL Plus account, and you can watch Chargers teams play over the weekend. Of course, they fly out, they go away on Saturday, and they play Saturday night and Sunday afternoon, respectively. Now, the game times here, I think we're Keilor Saturday night, so it's 6 o'clock in the women, 8 o'clock in the men, and then on Sunday at the State Basketball Centre in Knox, it is
midday for the women and 2 for the men.
2 for the men, and you can keep up to date by our social media as well too. We'll have our team. We'll have a team, and we'll have our interstate correspondent as well too on the ground.
Yes, we'll hope to get some game day photos as much as we can. A big shout out to the other,
yes.
And that's a big thing we've got to shout out to, Ronnie. We do talk about Shani and Simon, who are over there as well. But we also need to give a shout out to the opposing media teams of the clubs.
Yes,
very accommodating with photos and any expose from a media standpoint.
Absolutely.
We love the fact our team does a great work at home, but we do highly appreciate the work. And we've had some collaborations as well with some independent media over there as well that are getting some nice shots and some nice work. So we do appreciate all their work there. And the networking this season's been sensational.
It's been fantastic, JB. So you can keep up to date with all the goings on for your Mackay Timber Hobart Chargers by our Facebook page. You can give that a like. You can also give us a like on Twitter as well too, and you can give us a follow on Instagram, and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel as well too, where we'll unfortunately we haven't been able to get to the press conference at the moment because of all of our daytime commitments, so we haven't been able to get any presses up, unfortunately. But do keep an eye on Win News, and if Win do put up the news report of the Charger stuff, we do our best to share them as well too where we can. But we'll have some content very soon for you, like this podcast. This will go up tomorrow, and we're recording Wednesday night, so we'll go up sometime tomorrow afternoon. And keep up to date with all the goings on here for your Mackay Timber Hobart Chargers. Now, a quick shout out here to, and we're going to try and bring him back at the end of the month as well too. Massive thank you to Chris Simons, who jumped on commentary with us as well too, JB. I thought the 3-man booth kind of worked, and it's received some positive feedback. So we might get him back for the derby as well too. Yeah,
no, it was nice to have Chris on board and just to be able to banter you around. I mean, it sounds silly, but there's a big difference between commentating a game by yourself, commentating with 2 people, and even commentating with 3 people. That was probably the most energised we've felt post a basketball night in quite some time. Massive thanks to Chris there. He was able to really assist us there. He comes with a wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely.
He's been around the...
He's been around both programs.
Yeah, yep. For the better part of 25 years, he's been at that particular level or around it at that level. does a lot of work locally with juniors as well. So
Yes.
he's got his finger on the pulse as far as where the game's at and where it's coming from and rising from. So really great to have him on board. And yeah, if we can get him back on board at some stage, absolutely.
I'll certainly reach out to Chris once again. So we're not back on. So next week we have our podcast, and JB will be away. I will be somewhere and setting everything up, and then.
I'll be on the road. I'll be on the road for 2 weeks.
Yeah, you will be. So it'll be a bit of a different kind of situation. We have JB on the phone. I'll be somewhere. I don't know if I'll be home or a swish or down the pub somewhere trying to record a podcast. So we'll be
recording at the pub. I'll probably be at the pub when you call me.
Yes,
responsibly, of course.
Yes, absolutely. So we will, we're hopeful over the next few weeks as well too, JB. Now that a few things have started to settle down, we'll try and get some players for some chats as well too, JB. And I
know one bloke who won't be chatting with us. I don't know whether we should mention that, but that's
okay.
all right.
No worries.
Stewie likes to tell us, but
yes.
Anyway.
Yeah, that's right. But no, we'll try and get some of the players and have a bit of a yarn with them as well too. So we'll try and provide some extra content over the next month or two with the players. So we'll get on to that. But otherwise, tune in by the NBL1 website or the NBL1 app with your NBL Plus account, and you can watch the games on Saturday night and Sunday afternoon. So tune in and stay across all our socials, and then we'll come back here next week. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know what night we're recording, JB, but sometime next week we'll record and we'll review and we'll preview the following road trip coming up.
Yes, we will work that out. He's been Ronnie Riggs. I'm Justin Bryan, and we will catch you on the air very, very soon.